we have not met our obligations as budget writers up in that Senate. And I'll say one other thing, and I'm an attorney, and I like to read things myself, and so it's taken me a while to sort through this. This whole 45 days expiring at Friday midnight thing where we lose the money is completely and utterly bogus. If you look at the Congressional Research Service, if you look at the A.G. McMaster's opinion, if you look at the budget directive from the Obama administration's letter, they all say the same thing. This governor has a 2-year period to apply for that money. The 45 days only has relevance in regard to triggering under the Clyburn Amendment when the legislature can ask for the money if the governor doesn't. All three of those authorities I've just cited, the CRS, the AG, and the budget directive for Obama, says that the legislature can't do that. The 45 days no longer has any relevance whatsoever. This whole spectacle of putting up there in the Senate on a big board, 45-day clock down, is another scare tactic. Any legal expert, anybody familiar who's bothered to read the act, as I have, will come to that same conclusion. There's not a lot of truth going on out here. There's a lot of disingenuous posture. Now, I happen to think that this governor, at the end of the day, will be able to get that $700 million and to have his concerns met. His concerns met in regard to annualizations. His concerns met in regard to, funding programs that in 2 years won't be able to sustain. I think there are ways we can skin that cat. I have my own thoughts about that money. There are one-time projects we could spend money on. There are tax cuts, tax credits for jobs we could do, in addition to debt relief. There are things that if we get together, we can work out. But this whole idea that we've got a deadline come Friday, midnight, is bogus. At the end of the day, I know this governor. I've known him for over 30 years. I think this can be worked out. And if Senate leaders and House leaders will sit down with the governor in regard to this $700 million, I am confident they can come up with a package that does not create annualizations and does not put us in a budget hole. We haven't tried hard enough, and we owe it to the people of South Carolina to try.
Governor, for some reason they wanted to take attendance during your press conference, so I don't know what the reason for that would have been. That $700 million is coming to South Carolina. It's not going to New Jersey. It's coming here. How it's going to be used, I think, will be determined by the governor, and I think hopefully the governor working with the South Carolina General Assembly. But that money is coming to South Carolina. I've been here for 17 years, and the tactics that we use during the budgeting processes haven't changed in 17 years. We try to create fear, then we backfill the fear with more money, each and every time. I think things are different now, though. And why do I think things are different? I think people have had as much government as they can stand. I don't think they trust their federal government, and unfortunately, it rubs off on us. I don't think they trust the state government. There is money, more money than was told us on the Senate floor yesterday. There's more money than was told to us in Senate Finance Committee. There are other alternatives to be looked at relative to budgeting that does not create the Armageddon of South Carolina in 2009. I look forward to working with the leadership on a new plan, but at the end of the day, $700 million is not going to New Jersey, it's coming to South Carolina.
These guys said things a lot better than I could. Let me add 2 quick postscripts. One, the undercurrent, but what both of them said was really about setting priorities. And this notion of reform, I'll use Terry as an example. For years we've talked about how Terry doesn't make sense. It was originally designed to help teachers in need, and yet a court case basically said, no, it's open to all state workers. And yet, everybody's acknowledged the fact that it doesn't do that which it was intended to do, but nobody's been willing to touch it. It's during these economic times that you can actually change a program like that so that it goes toward its intended consequence, and in the process save a lot of money. If you reform Terry, you'd save $19 million just this year alone. And there are a lot of other savings like that that are incorporated into our budget. So this really does go back to this larger notion of setting priorities and protecting education, as Tom was just suggesting, but as well beginning this process of transforming some things that have been long overdue, vital to the state's competitiveness. I would secondly say this, it's also important to remember the overall numbers. Last year we spent $19 billion in South Carolina. This year, we're projected to spend $21 billion in South Carolina. That's an 11% increase in overall funding. If you look even at education, which is harder hit, last year we spent $3.3 billion. This year we're projected to spend $3.5 billion. That's a 4% increase. How in the world does that fit with an Armageddon-style budget that it literally lays off thousands of teachers? The answer is it didn't. And the answer is the reason it doesn't fit is because $578 million have been held out of that Senate finance budget to scare people. And so it's indeed our intent from the standpoint of administration to work with leaders in both House and Senate side to try and find a way to do the things that Tom just suggested, the things that you just suggested, and to avoid this number right here. If we simply go out and spend all the money, what needs to be remembered is that we end up with a $740 million annualization hole 24 months from now. And the easiest thing of all would be for me just to punt it and to say, I'm done with this job in 18 months and somebody else can figure it out 24 months from now. But I don't think you're being a financial steward if you leave this state in a spot where you got a $740 million financial hole. I would secondly say it does become important to look at paying down debt when you look at the overall numbers. And here we are, out of all 50 states in the Union, South Carolina ranking 4th in the United States of America in what we allocate to paying down debt versus other states. A full 11% of what we spend goes to paying down debt, and that's money that goes to bondholders in New York or Zurich, not to teachers and not to health care in South Carolina. I think it's particularly important to look at paying down debt when you look at the retirement fund, and we're 69% funded. Of the top 125 pension funds in the United States of America, South Carolina ranks 106 in the country. That's toward the worst side, not toward the best side. And it really, this is an opportunity. This is sort of the mother of all lotteries to state government budgets when you have this kind of plug of money, basically equal to what we spend in an entire year, and you say, okay, let's go ahead and spend all of it. We're talking about 10% of the total, not 90% of the total. What if we took 10% of the total and put it towards shoring up our finances? Would we be in a stronger financial position if indeed this financial storm lasts more than 24 months? It is my firm belief that we would be in a stronger financial position such that we could borrow more, we could spend more, we could do any number of different things because we would have financial latitude that we won't have if we don't pay any down debt. And that's why we've made this position that we have, and it's our hope to work with House and Senate leaders in that process. Questions from you all?